what I hope this also does is allow students to explore some of these different styles. For every piece, I wanted to find either a Bill Evans or a Herbie Hancock or something that would inspire these kids and get them kind of thinking in the original language that inspired me.
Hey there, teachers. It's Tim Topham here, and welcome back to another episode of the Topcast. It's absolutely fantastic that you are here with us today, and we just love putting these episodes together for you. So we do hope you're enjoying them, and I know you're going to love catching up with the one and only Kevin Olson, everyone's favorite composer. In today's episode, we're going to be unpacking his latest Top Music Sheets collection. Now, if you're not a Top Music Pro member, you may not realize that each and every month we give away free sheet music to all our members, including our members on our light $10 a month plan. And I can tell you what, for $10 a month, this collection from Kevin Olson is easily worth double that. It's such a great collection of music, and we're going to unpack it today, find out what he's composed, why he composed it, why he loves working with top music, his favorite tunes from this collection, and then we're also going to catch up more generally with him, talk about creativity, talk about the work he does at Utah State University, helping pedagogy, composition, and performance students. We're going to explore some of his viewpoints on how COVID has changed the world, and also what he's doing more generally as he's composing for more and more different organizations and publishers. It's a really great interview. I hope you enjoy it. So let's get in and find out a little bit more about Kevin Olson. Kevin Olson is an active pianist, composer, and member of the faculty at Utah State University, where he has taught courses in piano literature, pedagogy, accompanying, music theory, commercial composition, rock and roll history, among many others. In addition to his collegiate teaching responsibilities, Kevin coordinates the piano program at Utah State University and oversees the Utah State University Youth Conservatory, which provides weekly group and private piano instruction to over 150 pre-college community students. The National Association of Schools of Music has recently recognised the conservatory as a model for pre-college piano instruction programs. And before teaching at Utah State, he was on the faculty at Elmhurst College near Chicago and Humboldt State University in Northern California. Welcome back to the podcast, Kevin Olson.
Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be back.
So it's been a while since you were last here. February 2018, you were on episode number 118. And we talked about, well, the title of the episode was The Crisis in Creativity. So I actually want to start today and ask you, do we still have a crisis?
I'd love to report some good news to you all. I think we've all lived quite a bit since 2018, and I think creativity probably suffered just as much as everything else in pandemic years and things like that. I will say, I think that there are some signs of progress. When this article came out, and it was, cover story in Newsweek here in the United States and really went worldwide, I think we were all, I think it was a wake-up call for a lot of people in education. And of course, here in the United States, there's been now a lot of pushback against standardized testing. And now you're seeing a lot more as far as articles and research that are exploring this a little bit more. That same author, I was just noticing last week, had a new article where she compares creativity scores with school children in the United States and school children in China. So where China has been kind of standardized testing for a long time, and their creativity scores tend to be traditionally pretty low, and how we're still scoring above them, but we're getting into that zip code. So I think it's really important.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
So got to keep pushing it.
Yeah. So some really interesting research with that. But I really do think, here at, for example, our university, we're doing a lot more with courses that teach creativity, having students even outside of the music department studying courses like that. We're going to be having our first group keyboard improvisation class starting tomorrow. It's our first day of classes tomorrow. So
oh, wow.
Brand new course where our piano majors who have been playing Beethoven and Rachmaninoff their whole lives are going to have to get into a room with 12 or 13 other piano majors and start jamming. It'll be a wake-up call for those kids.
That will.
And I'm
what
seeing
a great experience.
As far as like job applications, college applications, I think people are starting to realize you're going to get much more interesting candidates or students if you change the way that you change up the application process or the questions you ask.
My anecdotal evidence is that in the last 5 to 10 years, that the at least knowledge of we can be more creative when we're teaching and playing music has definitely gone up. There's been a groundswell of it. You can see it by the NCKP adding creativity streams and all the conferences being more open to it. I don't think 20 years ago that was really even on the cards. So I think there is a movement. It's just a matter of what you're saying is it's a constant need for more information out there, more support for teachers, just continue the groundswell. Would that be right?
Yeah. And you're certainly a champion of that. I think the work that you've done has been incredible. And I think you're seeing that, there's with both generations of teachers who have been doing it a long time are starting to re-examine and explore new possibilities. And then we get this young, excited, new generation of teachers that realize, maybe I wasn't taught this way, but I can really kind of transform my teaching and integrate it without sacrificing all of the other things that are important to us: reading, technique, theory, and others.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that's where I've come to recently as well, is just to really highlight the balance, the holistic picture that we need to have of music lessons. It's not all about traditional performance, and it's not all about improv. We need a bit of everything. And that's what you're working on with your students on now that you've added these classes as well, right?
Yeah, you want to be versatile as a musician, don't you? We both know examples of incredible classical musicians that can't jump in and sight read or improvise. And we also know examples of great jazz musicians that can't read and can't get jobs because they can't function in a traditional ensemble. So it's the way we become marketable, I think, as a musician. That's how I package it to the students, at least.
Now, one of the other things that's happened since you were last on the show is that you've become a free agent, which is pretty cool. So you're no longer with FJH, and you're now self-publishing on your own website, also on Top Music Marketplace. And we're super excited about that. And you're also our Top Music Sheets composer for this month, which is even more amazing. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But first, what's it been like moving to self-publishing after, you were with FJH for a decade or more?
25 years. 25 years.
25 years.
Very old. Yeah, I was fresh. Well, I was still in college when I signed my first contract with them. And, to be really clear, I'm actually still publishing with FJH. It's not as an exclusive writer, but I have new books and sheets coming out with them. I'm doing a few things with Hal Leonard right now. I just finished a book of Christmas duets Christmas solos that will be coming out in the next week or two, but also pop duets that I've done with just, recent Justin Bieber, Olivia Rodrigo, all the newest things. And those were things that, frankly, unless you're a writer for Hal Leonard, it's really difficult to get licenses and things for those Christmas songs or for the pop arrangements. So to me, I'm like a kid on Christmas when Hal Leonard comes to me and says, hey, whatever you want, you can arrange. I'm having a ball with that. And of course, writing for you. I've got another publisher in Colorado that I do a few things for. So what it really has done is just it's just expanded the outreach. You have a really ardent fan base, and a lot of this crosses over, but I'm able to reach more people because these publishers have their own fan base. So it's been fantastic to meet new teachers and to get new music written.
Well, we are so excited that you've been able to create our latest Top Music Sheets collection. So for those listeners who aren't sure what Top Music Sheets is, this is our free monthly sheet music that we give all our members in Top Music Pro membership. It's studio license, and it's from, we've had all sorts of different composers around the world. Kevin's just one of them, Christopher Goldston, Carol Matz, you name it. And we've been loving playing through this collection. It's been so much fun. Can you tell us about what you've put together? Because you haven't just grabbed some random ad hoc group of your works. You have created this specially, and it's got some roots that go back about 170 years.
Yeah. Well, and first I have to just thank you for the invitation. It's fun. And for me, whenever I get invitations or commissions and things like that, I never want to say no, because I think these are pieces that wouldn't exist otherwise. So I'm always a little nervous to ever decline anything like that, because I think there's some collection or piece out there that's just floating that I have to discover. And in your invitation, you just said, hey, put a collection together. It was kind of a very, a generic invitation, which was fun because it allowed me to be creative. And I know some of your other collections that you've commissioned in the past have not had maybe necessarily a title or a theme, but it's just kind of the way I roll. I've done it for so many years in writing books for FJH. So I started playing around with this idea of what would Robert Schumann's Album for the Young sound like if he had lived in 2021. He's a fabulous improviser, super creative. I imagine he probably would have been playing in jazz clubs in Hamburg or wherever. So I thought, what would a jazz album for the young look like? You had mentioned that you really like these collections to have a nice range of levels, and so does his. I mean, when you look at the very beginning of Schumann's collection, it's very simple, but it gets pretty tricky by the end. And I put a little introduction at the beginning in there, and I did a little more research as I started thinking more about this, and I didn't realize, I knew he had written this for his own children, but I didn't realize that he had such strong opinions about what the juvenile music was of the day and how horribly boring etudes and all this kind of stuff. He hated it. And he thought, kids can be playing really imaginative, great pieces that still teach you something. And so that's why we still use his Album for the Young today, because kids still resonate with the titles, with the imagery, with the moods. And yet we know as teachers, they just teach such solid concepts that they still permeate our recitals in 2021.
And so once you had this idea, I'm going to recreate the Album for the Young for today, where do you then start? Did you go back and play through and then work out, I reckon I could do something with this piece? Or how did it evolve?
Yeah, well, it's fun when you start getting these ideas percolating. That's what I feel like for all young creatives. Work on those big ideas first, because I think that helps with the improvisation and the creativity process. I find myself, it's much more difficult if I just sit and say, okay, I'm going to write a piece, let's go, and nothing comes, But if I'm already starting to think of, well, what did Schumann do back in the day? He wrote a little humming song. What if I wrote something that was kind of like a jazz version of that? And so so I've got a little piece at the beginning of this that's about the same level as that one, called Scatting Song. So what I also want to do with this collection is educate kids a little bit in the idiom of jazz. So Tim, you know this, but at the very beginning of this book, I have a little explanation of each piece, but I also have a sample YouTube or other type of recording they can track down. So for this one, I give them an example of Ella Fitzgerald, How High the Moon. And if they want to know a little bit more about what scatting's all about, just wait about a minute or 2 minutes in and you'll see some serious scatting there. And so what I hope this also does is allow students to explore some of these different styles. For every piece, I wanted to find either a Bill Evans or a Herbie Hancock or something that would inspire these kids and get them kind of thinking in the original language that inspired me. So yeah, I mean, I've taught those Schumann pieces so many times, I didn't have to go back and play them again. They're kind of tattooed in my brain, I guess. But I did have several of those in mind as I started to come up with these original pieces.
Yeah, teachers are going to have just as much fun exploring this collection, I think. Perhaps even more so in some ways than students, because they're going to know the original pieces that they relate to. And I had a chance to play through the collection and record. I always record a demo video of me just having fun with these and demonstrating them for my members. And I loved all of the pieces. But my particular favorites, Alone in a Crowd was lovely. Sunrise in San Pedro, you've got the lovely kind of Latin rhythms, and I know you mentioned that you love Latin music, which I do too. Rockasaurus Rex and The Promise of Tomorrow, they really stood out for me. And listeners may not know as well that we actually share professional recordings of all of these pieces for each of our collections. And so I thought we might share one of them now for one of my favorites, which is Rockasaurus Rex. Tell us quickly, what was the basis for Rockasaurus Rex, or any thoughts on that one?
Well, I hope this title hasn't been taken from anybody, but when I came up with it, I was like, this is cool. I think kids would really dig the title.
Love the title, yes.
I think that might just sell the piece already as it is. It's a piece that explores a little bit kind of some funky rhythms and things like that. If I remember right, it was a Jaco Pastorius piece. Yeah, Jaco Pastorius, a great bass player, and got into funk in the 1970s or so. Kids will YouTube this and just won't believe all of the great intricate rhythms and things like that in a piece. And it'll help them kind of understand the prominence of those syncopated beats throughout the piece. It's not an easy piece to count, but it's more of a piece that you feel. Once you figure out the pattern, then you don't worry about counting every eighth note. You just play it. And so I think you'll hear it as Tim plays this, that it has a repetitive rhythm that once you figure out is pretty playable.
All right, let's have a listen now. cool is that? I reckon this piece is going to become one of those studio favorites. I mean, I can think of some, Christopher Norton pieces, or we've got a great composer here in Australia called Sonny Chua, who sadly died a year or so ago. Both their pieces, there's a couple in the collection that just all the teachers love and just immediately appeals. I reckon you're onto a winner here, Kevin. I think this one's going to really appeal. I think it's also going to really appeal to listeners as well when you perform these at recitals and things like that. And so I was wondering, do you ever consider, I guess there's a few elements here. Do composers consider what it's like to teach? Whether the students will enjoy it is a big one, but what about the teaching side? And then what about also the audience side and the parents that have to listen to the repetitive practice going on at home? Do you guys think about that?
Absolutely. Well, it's interesting you bring this up. Just this last semester at Utah State, I taught a course for our piano majors. We get to have a special topics course where we just decide what we're in the mood to teach that semester. And so I decided to teach one on pedagogical composition, since a lot of these piano majors are now teaching young kids. And so I thought I'm going to get them actually composing pieces at these different levels to see kind of how that process works. It's not just putting a pretty piece together. And that's what sometimes young composers come to me for guidance or feedback. And coming up with a beautiful piece, that's great. But pedagogical composition, as you mentioned, is like one step beyond that, which is not only does it need to be engaging, but it needs to be easily learned, easily memorized, accessible, and immediately engaging. So, and you're thinking about level the whole time. I mean, we looked at Fur Elise, for example, as an example of very bad pedagogical composition, because the first page is most, kids can handle that and nobody wants to go on to page 2 because it's so hard, right? So these are the kind of things we try to avoid as pedagogical composers. I'm so glad you brought up people like Christopher Norton when you talk about jazz pedagogical composing, because personally, I kind of have a little bit of a pet peeve about fake jazz, things that's called jazz, but you'd never really hear it played in a club today, And so I find it really important for me, if I'm going to call something jazz and put it out pedagogically, that these are the same kind of voicings that I would play if I was in a combo or in a club or doing dinner music or something like that, as opposed to maybe kind of old-fashioned, maybe what jazz may have been considered 100 longer ago. But so Christopher Norton, I think, is a great example of someone who is out there playing. He's walking the walk too, and he's doing jazz professionally, and you can hear it in his compositions.
Yeah, there's a few times, in fact, in the demo video, we'll put a link to that in our show notes for today, where I stumble across a couple of chords that you put in. It just makes me smile. I had to stop and play them. And they're kind of minor ninths or 11ths or something like that. And you're right, that's where it's not just, okay, I'm going to swing the rhythm and now it's jazz. It's like, no, what are the voices and chord voicings that jazz musicians use? And bang, you've got them in here.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed it.
You can't fake it. You really have to immerse yourself in it. And if you're composing in this kind of jazz idiom, then I recommend, getting into those fake books and learning the chords you're talking about, Tim, and just becoming as authentic. And also, transcriptions. Go find some good Oscar Peterson or Herbie Hancock transcriptions, which are all over the internet. Learn those note for note. And I think you start speaking the language a little bit that way.
So I know it's a tough question. Do you have a favorite from the collection we could have a listen to?
Well, for me, I had to, I'm always about really silly puns and things like that. For me, the last piece of the book, which is the most difficult, is a take on Wild Rider. I changed the beginning of the word to Riled Wider, I don't even know what that means, but it takes Wild Rider, the theme, and imagine it's that kind of a bebop, Charlie Parker kind of tune, and get students kind of playing with those really fast bebop licks over the basic harmonies of Schumann's Wild Rider. So there's probably one of the more literal kind of time travel experiments from the original album for the young that goes into this, and it's pretty tricky. So your high schoolers, older kids that are pretty advanced, if they're playing Mozart or Beethoven sonatas, they'll find this to be pretty challenging. So you really have the most basic kind of pieces at the beginning, and then one that'll, I think, will get your older students more motivated, maybe.
Let's take a listen. Yeah, I must say when I played through this one, Kevin, I didn't do it at speed. So you've said fast swing at 100 crotchet or quarter note equals 144. I think in my demo I was a little bit slower than that as I was trying to sight read.
You're forgiven. Yeah, it's not easy.
It's challenging.
I'm glad you didn't make me play it today.
Yeah.
I need a few hours, I think.
But that's why I do love these Top Music Sheets collections, because as you said, we have early or late beginner kind of styles right up to late intermediate. So teachers can always find a piece in there that will suit a student, or in many cases, many more. We've got so many of our members just can't get enough of these collections. So it's been an absolute pleasure working with you on that. Thank you so much again.
Thank you. I hope we get to do it again sometime. We're just big fans of what you're doing out here. I know Tim knows, but we use your videos all the time in our college pedagogy classes, and just I think you and I are just on the same wavelength with the way we think of the exciting possibilities of creativity in a good piano lesson.
100%. So you've mentioned your role. I just want to change tack for a moment, Kevin. You've mentioned your role. You are a professor at Utah State University. Tell us what do you oversee there? What's your day-to-day role there?
Yeah, I am the coordinator of the piano program here. So we have between, depending on the year, between maybe 20, 30, maybe up to 35 majors in our program. And so I'm overseeing things like the curriculum, who they're studying with, how all of them are doing, recitals. We're always doing interesting concerts and things like that. You'll like this in our open kind of quad area by our old main building in the spring. We put a piano out there in the middle of the quad, and we had what we called a rock concert, but we spelled it R-A-C-H. So it was just nonstop Rachmaninoff. And so there are a bunch of rock stars out and doing that. This fall, we're doing a concert that's called Piano Music Around the World. So we've assigned different countries to different students, and they're doing the research. We've got someone playing Carl Vine, for example, from Australia.
Oh, wow. Yep.
We've got people represented, or countries like even Nigeria, Ethiopia. There's a really cool new Oxford edition of African piano repertoire that's out there. So just the same way that I'm very passionate about creativity, I'm also passionate about underrepresented piano repertoire, and really getting out and exploring new composers, female composers, composers that maybe haven't been from your traditional European, North American kind of countries. And so those are the kind of things that it gets me excited to wake up in the morning and do. Tomorrow I teach, again, it's our first day of the semester. I'm teaching a commercial music composition class where the students are going to be scoring a film. They're going to be doing a songwriter showcase in our cafe at the university. They're going to be arranging something for our pep band to play at the basketball game. So it's getting these theory students that have taken 3 or 4 semesters of theory actually writing practical compositions. They all know how to avoid parallel fifths in a Bach chorale, but do you know how to take a Taylor Swift tune and arrange it for a pep band for a basketball game? It's a whole different kind of thing, and it's that marketability thing we talked about earlier.
So you're working with composition students, performance students, and pedagogy, and everything in between, it sounds like, right?
Yeah. So I'm on the piano faculty, but they have me teaching some theory classes. That's what this composition class is. I teach a history of rock and roll class that's just for a general education out to all the majors. That's about 200 students take that each semester. So that's a fun kind of take. It's not just, it's kind of the sociology and the messages behind rock and roll, and the messages of power and injustice, and how rock has really been kind of in the forefront of a lot of these movements throughout the last 100 years. So fun stuff.
Yeah, complete mixed bag. I can see now why I was talking to you. I talk to you at the end of semesters sometimes. You're like, Tim, I cannot, just talk to me in a few weeks. I can't do it.
I'm ready now. Yeah, talk to me in December. I might be a different guy, but I'm excited for tomorrow.
You're refreshed now. I wonder, how has the pandemic affected your students? Have you noticed changes in their views of the future, particularly of performance students, or are they just kind of getting on with it as normal?
Yeah, it's been difficult. I think everybody has kind of felt that. I think, as much as we would love to champion, technology as a replacement for in person, I just don't think we can ever do that. I think this experiment shows us that, it's nice to have as an alternative. And if a student can't get to your office, we know there's a way to do it, but there's certainly something lost in the translation, whether you're teaching at an elementary, an intermediate, or even advanced level. And the differences are of course, different for every age group. For an elementary student, just the act of communication and have them understanding what we're doing, that's much more difficult. And for our advanced students, just the nuance of being able to hear each other, for me to be able to demonstrate in the same space, it's just not the same. But I'm really happy we know now that we have an alternative. If we have a snowstorm here in Utah and a student can't make it, now I know I can still teach them. So it's a nice backup plan. I think for them, it's been a really difficult. We're very aware of mental illness, struggles, anxiety that have been kind of brought to the forefront as students have been kind of locked down, not been able to interact socially. We as pianists, it's already a very lonely animal, what we have to do anyway. We're practicing by ourselves and performing often alone on the stage. And when you combine that with never being able to interact with other musicians or seeing live concerts, then it takes away our only social lifeline that we had. So we're easing back in. I know every country's in a little bit of a different situation right now. We're recommending masks, and we're in the spring, all the students here at Utah State will be required to show proof of vaccination. So I'm optimistic that we're kind of in the tail end of this, but my hope was that we could just be back to normal this fall, and it's still lingering just a little bit.
Yeah, I think it will for some time. I mean, over here, we're back in lockdown. A lot of our university level students haven't been on campus for actually a year or more. And I really feel for them because there's so much fun to be had at those on-campus experiences that they're missing. So I'm glad to hear that there's certainly still positivity amongst your students, and they're getting on and exploring and continuing to learn. Just looking at your pedagogy students more particularly now, because as I work mainly with teachers, and there's a lot of teachers listening, what do you see some of their concerns are, or the questions that you get a lot coming into as they're sort of finishing up university and moving into a teaching career? What kind of things do they have questions about?
Yeah, well, I think, you see it on the front end, and then you also see them, as you said, toward graduation. On the front end, I think a lot of things I have to convince them of, young students, is what a great career it can be. And how I think, a lot of them are being told by their parents that you can't make money in music, that it's really, a starving artist kind of thing. And so I think on the front end of our degree, it really becomes important for me to show how successful music teachers do it, and how, by putting together, really imaginative and great studio spaces and things like that, you can have a great living as a piano teacher. And then on the back end, there's still a little bit of that concern, how do I transition out there and get students? So, I really feel like it's important for our students here to take courses in entrepreneurship, marketing. It's one of the things that I think is the missing link, at least in the United States university curriculum for music, is this practical application. We send these kids out with degrees and they're playing Rachmaninoff and Brahms, but can they actually, make a living? You have to essentially sell yourself. Exactly. And I know that's a big part of what you're doing, and how you're helping teachers, and even following your model of how you've done that. So, so I think that to me is sometimes missing in our curriculum, and we're trying to do more of that at Utah State.
Yeah, I was going to say, are you able, how restricted by government or however it works over there by what you can actually teach them? Can you set aside time to do those entrepreneurial studies?
Yeah, and most degree programs have some electives that are kind of built into the program. We're certainly not a conservatory, so it'd be more difficult at a place like Juilliard, I guess. But I think that at most state universities, there's already a little bit of that built into the curriculum. There are even general education requirements that students could choose, if they're smart, to take as a business kind of angle on that and get their gen ed requirements done. So sometimes it's a little bit of advising on our part as faculty to help students say, yeah, you could choose to do Pilates this semester, or you could choose to take a course over in the business school. And most of them can kind of see the value of doing something practical like that.
I was going to ask you what your advice for young teachers who are listening, and I think that's probably it. Is it go and get some business advice and help as much as you can?
Yeah, it doesn't have to come through the university. We're living in a great time of information, and there are so many podcasts like you have, and other types of websites and things. A simple Google search will let young teachers find all sorts of resources and ways to market. And honestly, they're already so good at this. They've been marketing themselves since 5th grade through Instagram and, TikTok and other types of things. So really, I feel like they're the ones that should be teaching many of these classes, because they understand, the power of social media. They understand how to make videos and to do a lot of these things. So I'm optimistic. I find that our students are very well equipped. They just need to know that that's part of the gig.
Well, I always get such a buzz from having you on the show, Kevin, and just connecting with you. I can't wait till we can actually meet in person. Once we're allowed to leave Australia, I'll be over there in a flash. So I really look forward to that. Thanks for coming on the show again today. And people can find your music on our Top Music Marketplace, or you can grab this free, incredible collection as part of our membership. And you can get a membership of Top Music Pro on our Lite plan. That's just $10 a month. So if you want to find out more about that, topmusicpro.com. We'd love to have you join us. And you've got a fabulous website over at Kevin Olson Music as well. Is that the best place for people to keep in touch with what you're up to?
It does. Yeah. I'm a little bit behind just this summer, late summer, on the newest things, including your publication. So that'll be on my to-do list this week. Once I can survive the first couple of days of classes, I'll put a link up to what you're doing, and then some of the new Hal Leonard and other types of publishings that I've got going on right now.
Fantastic. Well, we can't wait to see what you produce in the future. And thanks so much for being part of our Top Music Sheets program and being on the show today, Kevin.
Oh, my pleasure. Let's do this again.
Well, I hope you enjoyed catching up with Kevin Olson. He's just such a phenomenal composer, performer, educator, but just an all-round nice guy as well. I absolutely adore catching up with him, and we are so privileged and honoured that he would compose a collection for our Top Music Sheets. So if you aren't yet a member and you'd like to come and grab this collection, but not only this one, but all the future monthly collections we bring out, then head over to topmusicpro.com. And remember, you can get the free sheet musics just like this pack of Kevin Olson sheet music, even on our Lite plan for just $10 a month. But keep in mind, we only release our Top Music Sheets publications for the month that they're available. So if you do want to connect and play and explore Kevin's music, then you need to become a member this month. This is September 2021. Next week on the show, we're going to be joined by John Malinzak. He's Vice President, Music Education and Technology over at Hal Leonard Corporation, and he has a huge amount of experience working on the Noteflight program. So we're going to be talking and unpacking Noteflight, and also one of their newer features called Noteflight Learn, which our members have been making great use of, particularly during online lessons. So we're going to be exploring all about that, talking about music education in general, and I do hope you can join us then. Of course, if you've missed anything from today's episode, do head to our show notes at topmusic.co/episode 258. In the meantime, I hope you have a great week ahead, and I will speak to you this time next week. Bye-bye. For more information about this episode and to find out how to enhance your own teaching, visit topmusic.co. You'll find everything you need for your studio, from lesson plans to cheat sheets, quick win teaching ideas, and guides on how to build your teaching business. Plus, you'll be connected to a global community of the world's top music teachers. And when you're ready, join hundreds of other teachers around the world by becoming a Top Music Pro member and get access to all our bonus content and flagship courses. And don't forget to follow topmusic.co on social media and subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to it. That's all for today. We'll see you in the studio.